Subscribe to WROK on YouTube and never miss a meeting.
All right, good night, everyone. I'm going to call to order the September 26, 2022 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. We're going to begin with an invocation given by Commissioner Hunt, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I ask that you stand if you can, please.
As we come together this evening to carry forth the business of the city and its residents, let us take a moment to be thankful for all that we have. In a time where so many have so little, we should be thankful to be part of a community that values not only our material blessings, but also the blessings of our collective will, where we may not always be of the same mind and on every issue, but still having the capacity and inclination to come together around greater good under which we all prosper. Let us not only be thankful for these precious blessings, but please also endow us with the spirit and the vision to continue to do the work necessary to preserve and allow our community to continue to thrive. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that brings us to item 4 on tonight's agenda, which is the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Colo?
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dubak. Any discussion? With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have an agenda set. All right, this brings us to item 5, which is public comment. Just a few quick notes on public comment. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to make decisions. Now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issues, whether or not they're on the agenda. I ask that comments be directed to the City Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. If you wish to speak tonight at public comment, please wait until recognized by me, the mayor, then come up to the podium. We'll ask you for your name and address for the record. Please be mindful that the City Commission wants to hear from everyone who wishes to speak, so comments are limited to 3 minutes or less per speaker, not per topic. There is a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your allocated time. If you don't wish to speak tonight, don't hesitate to email us or call us at any time with your comments. Please note that the City Commission will not respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we are taking notes and will address those questions when the agenda topic is discussed or refer it to the proper city department if the matter is not scheduled to be on the agenda this evening. Our city manager is also taking notes and looks into matters as needed. With that, who's first tonight? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Patricia Webster. I live at 3321 Melrose Court, Royal Oak. I've lived here my whole life. I recently, in the last 2 years, sold our house and we bought a condo because my husband's disabled. Our taxes have shot up from $3,000 to $6,300 a year for no city services except garbage. For people who are going into condos and seniors, this is insane. There has to be some kind of way to work with people to help with these taxes because they're out of control. I just can't even tell you how devastating this has been. We're probably going to have to move out of Royal Oak because we can't afford these taxes. The parking in downtown Royal Oak for a disabled person, which my husband can't walk farther than a block to get out of a business, come out, move his car if it's over 2 hours, and then try and find another parking space is insane to me. These parking structures are wonderful for young people, but you have older citizens in Royal Oak that are being totally ignored. It's like the Rochester Road diet. If an ambulance or a fire truck has to get down there, it's going to double the amount of time, especially in Rochester and Main Street traffic, during rush hour, an hour before, an hour after. And I feel like you guys are ignoring all of us in Royal Oak who don't put a ton of money into the city, besides the exorbitant taxes. I mean, I'm kind of like begging you for any senior citizen in Royal Oak to start looking at these matters. I voted for you, all of the rest of you, and if there's another election, I wouldn't vote for you for anything because you guys just ignore us. And I'm just so disappointed after 50 years in Royal Oak that I have to consider moving because of what you guys are doing. There's no retail businesses in downtown Royal Oak. What is there, like 3 dress shops? Because rent is so out of control with these landlords. I mean, why haven't you considered rent control in downtown Royal Oak to help small businesses? It's just, it goes on and on and on, and we talk about it on the neighborhood sites, and I'm disappointed more people aren't here tonight to tell you guys how we feel. Because there are young people that agree with me. But I'm begging you guys to take a look at what you're doing and start polling some of the residents. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Webster. All right. Mr. Karlowski.
Rick Karlowski, 419 Virginia, with regards to item 11 here. So you guys are going to go through with this, eh? I mean, if you're going to have a contract with Mr. Witz, at least have him recoup the city for the amount of money he would have had to allocate for the rink he's under contract for to supply this city during winter break, or carnival, or whatever you want to call it, winter festival. Right now, we're taking on all the liability. Not only that, he gets a management fee. Not only that, he gets skate rentals during the Winter Blast event. I am amazed that some of you, well, I guess I can explain why a couple of you have bankruptcies associated with you. What kind of contracts do you guys write here? And then you're going to turn around, as this lady just told you want another 0.8 mils for parks and seniors, another tax increase because we don't have enough money. We're going to look at a cash shortage here, and you're spending money left after right on a rink that is under contract to be done by Mr. Witz for the Winter Blast. Okay? Now, if you want to do it longer than that, that might be. But there certainly should be some cost recuperation for the contract that he currently has. There's no way in hell he should be able to just offload all this to the city and get a management fee and get skate rentals. I don't know who writes these contracts, but you got to go back to some business school because you don't know what the hell you're doing. And finally, Paul Brink, I hope you keep a list of all the funds that are going into this little project because I'll be pouring them. And we're going to see just how profitable this is despite what Mr. Witz says it's going to be. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Karlowski. All right. I think we'll go with Mr. Ashley next.
He's lost 4 times, right?
Good evening, Alan Ashley. I live at Royal Oak Manor. Last Wednesday, we had a reopening of our place. For those who didn't make it, call me and I'll give you a tour. Thank you to Commissioner Douglas and Commissioner Perush. Also at that meeting, it was announced that we got an award from NAMA, the Vanguard Award. NAMA is the National Affordable Housing Management Association. We got the award for major rehabilitation of the existing rental housing community for Royal Oak Manor. We had to write a letter and all sorts of stuff. What it entailed was CSI, Royal Oak Manor, a co-op in 1973 using Department of Housing, Urban and Development Section 236 program. We have a 243 unit and we maintain 50 units of Section 8. What we have done, floors 2 through 11, common areas, balconies enclosed, larger community lounges. First floor multi-purpose room, a library was added, new meeting areas and private adequate meeting spaces for Royal Oak Manor volunteers and leadership. The project design also enhanced resident safety and improved access to social services, ensuring residents can safely age in place. 2 service coordinator offices offices were constructed and converted and conveniently on the first floor locations. An e-call system connecting the central third-party monitoring to install. There are 2 in each room, 1 in the bedroom, 1 in the bathroom, so that if you need an emergency, it automatically goes to the fire department. We have lights over the door, and that will show the fire department, police department, where the apartment is, where the emergency is. We also added a new roof, new HVAC system to improve heating efficiency and resident comfort. The new system is estimated to reduce energy costs by 16% in the first year, and hopefully it will be included, go up higher in the future years. So again, if anybody wants, give me a call. I know the 2, Commissioner Douglas, Commissioner Prush, enjoyed the view from the 11th floor where you can see all the way downtown Detroit. Matter of fact, on 4th of July, anything above the 9th floor, you can look down and see the fireworks on the river from, if it's a clear night. So it is an amazing view, so if you want to come, just give me a call. Thank you.
Will do, Mr. Ashley. Thank you.
It's gorgeous.
I see a hand back there in the back corner.
Yeah. Ask you how your work's going. Oh, great. Yeah.
Rod Niner, 324 Royal Avenue, Royal Oak. The city is considering spending $500,000 for an outdoor ice rink at City Hall Park. The developer claims that the city will recover the money. You voted for a transformer before you've approved the ice rink. If you turn down the ice rink, you'll have an expensive transformer with way more capacity than any other event could possibly use. If the winter event organizer feels that he can make the money back, then let him apply to the bank for a loan, rather than putting the citizens of Royal Oak at risk. I understand we want a vibrant downtown, but the Downtown Development Authority, whose job is to keep downtown vibrant, is only chipping in something like $100,000. Instead, they are asking the citizens of Royal Oak to chip in the balance and hope that it works out. You will vote tonight to grant easement to DTE on the Royal Oak Public Library. Did you even bother to ask them what their thoughts were first? Or are we doing this backwards like we do most things here? You will vote tonight to, tonight you'll designate October 5th, 2022 Energy Efficiency Day. Using more electricity to create an outdoor ice rink will not help climate change. Using 2 transformers, one at the library and a portable one at the ice rink, is doubling the energy consumed by the transformers. Transformers have heat pins on them for a reason. I am a homeowner. I am tired of the DDA and downtown getting new roads and clean streets and not only getting what they want, but using the rest of the citizens' money to do it. Meanwhile, my street is left to clog with tree litter and flood, and the main street north of 12 Mile giving nothing but cold patch thrown into the cracks. Thank you. You plan a road diet on Rochester Road, which will cause more backups. Thanks again. At previous meetings, at the previous one, homeowners came and complained about a porta potty across from their house. Other homeowners complained about a property on Woodward being redeveloped with windows facing their backyards, and when the original condition given for the previous owner to build closer to the homeowners said they couldn't, yet you allow them to do it. I am tired of this city council being only concerned about downtown and ignoring homeowners. While you may feel it's only a few people affected, the rights of the minority still need to be protected. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I see a hand right here.
Sue Fabian, 316 Midland. I present to you the city's organizational chart on page 52 of the 22-23 budget. It has voters on top. That's your mandate. It's above even the mayor and the city commission. It shows that your duty is to serve the will of the people, else the voters would not be above you. On January 25th from this year, data from a summer-long city-sponsored survey as to the favorability of the Rochester Road Diet was presented to the city's Citizens Traffic Committee. The data showed that over 70% of over 400 respondents were opposed to this project. Indeed, the Traffic Committee rejected it. I was there. I can verify their rejection. Here's an article about the Traffic Committee's rejection. That the city continues to falsely present on its website 8 months later that the Traffic Committee approved it is either sheer incompetency or intentionality to mislead the people. Worse, the City Commission overruled their own Traffic Committee and the people's will by approving the Rochester Road Diet on Valentine's Day. This was passed in part from 2 anecdotal witnesses, you and the city engineer, both opining that since you didn't have any problems on Main Street with its road diet, none of us would have any problems on Rochester Road. I was there. Your evidence was scanty and the attempted logic wouldn't survive a high school debate. This summer, I've launched a summer-wide canvassing for or against the road diet in an unbiased manner. We had over 1,000 homes and 45 businesses from 13 to 14 Mile and Main Street to Blair. 96.1% of those we reached are opposed to the road diet. Of the 45 businesses canvassed, 95% were opposed. Those who voted for it cited speed and walkability safety as concerns, while the overwhelming majority cited traffic backups, cut-through traffic, and left-turn difficulties as concerns. 2 questions. Based on the city-sponsored Facebook survey of over a 70% objection rate, directly impacted neighborhoods expressing a 96.1 objection rate, and the Rochester Road businesses at a 95% rejection rate. Will you redecide? And if not, explain to us how this is not your total fail in your duty to reflect the will of the people as required by your own organizational chart. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fabian. All right, we'll go with Ms. Wagman next.
Good evening. Janice Wagman. Regarding the ice rink, I'm going to reiterate some of what Mr. Karlowski said. If you're paying attention to social media posts, a cross-section of the city are against using the new park for this costly venture. My objections to the ice rink are strictly financial and based on the unhealthy condition of our general fund. We have a signed contract with Mr. Witz for Winter Blast stating we will pay him $100,000 sponsorship fee, and he agrees to supply the rink, setup, takedown, water, power, rentals, and staffing, etc., not only during the 3 days of the event, but plus 14 additional days minimum, and including 3 4-day weekends. On tonight's agenda, it appears the new agreement requires us to assume all of these costs, including the time frame he has promised to pay for them, plus pay Mr. Witz a management fee. I propose that if you want to proceed with this highly speculative venture tonight, the proposed contract be changed to have Mr. Witz fulfill the obligations of his already signed contract by paying for the full cost of the rink setup, takedown, water, power, and approximately 23% of the operational and rental cost to which he has already committed. I urge you not to approve this contract without those amendments. To the voters watching at home, this week the absentee ballots are going to be going out, and they'll include 2 millages for parks, forestry, recreation, animal shelter, and seniors. One of the terms that's used a lot in explaining this is a dedicated funding source. This is just another way of saying tax increase.
The city will no longer be required to use your existing tax payments for these purposes. The senior millage will generate $3.11 million in revenue over the 5 years, but a mere $110,000 out of $3.11 million is above what we've already budgeted. Do you really think this low amount will increase transportation and support services along with the other things that you are citing in the promotions? I don't. It's a tax increase. Both parks and senior services are eligible expenditures for our ARPA funds, but they weren't included on the survey that was put online. It's a tax increase. I urge the citizens at home to vote no on these millages. Ask the City Commission to have the completed Parks Master Plan and Senior Task Force plans with identified goals, their associated costs, and bring back a better proposal next year, dedicating funds to those goals, not just a tax increase. Thank you.
Gentleman in the back.
Hello, John Glutka, Royal Avenue. When you approved the Rochester Road Diet, it was against recommendations of the Traffic Committee and 70% of the residents surveyed who wanted no road diet, and the rest who voiced preferences for bike lanes, obviously with curbs in place as they are. You chose the worst of three options with curbs moved in for almost $1 million more. It's not about stormwater, which can be mitigated with rain gardens. It's not about stormwater when you already fill the parks with as much concrete as you can get in them and charge residents to put in sidewalks where there were none before, sometimes more than $8,000. In building the city commons, there was underground silver cells in the list of construction items you chose to leave out to save $80,000. Silver cells help to mitigate stormwater. You canceled them. It's not about stormwater when you let developers who are political contributors reduce setbacks and green space in new construction. It's not about stormwater when you write a social benefits ordinance that rewards those same developers a mechanism to receive reduced setbacks written into law. You really should note in the commission agenda each meeting the political contributions involved in the topics that you are voting on, such as Mr. Witt's tonight and the 3-month ice rink in the park. It's ironic that you have to use electricity from gas-fired plants to cool an ice rink during our warm winters caused by global warming. Ironic especially in light of your green declaration this evening. On November 8th, 2021, at the first commission meeting after the election 6 days earlier, you proceeded to pass the Quality Contractors Ordinance, which directed city bids to be judged on factors that, in part, included how rich retirement benefits would be for workers and other items favored by unions. City officials acknowledged at that time the ordinance would result in increased construction costs. In mid-December 2021, when Oakland County election records were published, we could see the amount of labor union funds that had gone into each of your campaigns for that election 1 month earlier. The mayor got $16,000 from labor unions, 47% of his total contributions, but all of you got money. In the election prior, Commissioner DeBuck got $14,000 or 57% of his money from labor unions. What do unions get for their contributions? What do you give back to them besides an ordinance? $1 million more in road work? It doesn't matter which pot of money the Rochester Road Diet comes out of, you are spending money that will take away function, make residents' lives worse, and against their expressed wishes. By narrowing the road, you chose to reduce function and increase congestion even more than what is on Main Street, especially on garbage and leaf collection days. You should rescind the extreme restricted road diet. You should never have approved it in the first place, and you should not ignore and insult Royal Oak residents as you do. I wouldn't expect people to vote yes on your upcoming new tax proposals when you spend extra money to make their lives worse. You have too much money already. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Yes, ma'am. Yep.
Good evening. Patsy Reggio. Okay, let's see. First of all, one of the first times I came was about the road diet, and it was quite amazing how it was handled because all the information they just gave you is true. Why would you even have a traffic committee? The one person sitting over there at that desk said that somebody asked up here, oh, was there a study done on Main Street? And she said, oh, no, there wasn't a study done, but I drive out on that road and it was fine with me. And she mentioned Birmingham. People in Birmingham love Maple Road. We're not Birmingham. We're not Grand Blanc. We're not Rochester. The city manager, what have you done? I wish I could do a documentary. I wish I would have won the Mega Million. I would have bought out that mayor and not let him take the main theater away. There's not one tree there now. And I wonder if they're involved in the art fan thing. I wonder if he's got money in that. I have no idea. You're not qualified if you have to hire consultants. I know you're not listening, but you know what? It doesn't matter if you listen. If we don't say something, we want to live with ourselves. I said one time before, when you make a decision, go home and look in the mirror. You voted for the pot. You voted for the rink that's wrong. And you can't answer any questions. I wish you could change the format. If everybody came up here could ask one question and get a yes or no. Have they approved redoing the electrical for the farmer's market? Are they redoing that for the farmer's market? For safety reasons. They hold all kinds of events there now. It's wonderful. Oh, okay, good. And so, yay, it's because I'm older, I guess. So, but you know what? We voted, and you're not doing your job. Every committee, even the development committee, the planning committee, I heard them speak on the 12th. I watched it on TV, and it was just like the people coming up about the main theater. They were so upset about the park and the things in the city, the porta potties and all that. I just don't know how you live with yourselves. I don't know how the city manager can do that to our city. The retail's gone. Where are the kids? Oh, I can walk down the street with a drink in my hand. Why don't you just go sit at the bar or sit at a table and have your drink? Why do you have to walk down the street with a drink? I fought against it when my kids were in high school. Don't drink and drive. These people are all in the pursuit of happiness. That's in our Constitution, and I wish you'd give it to them, but you're not going to do it.
Thank you.
And people that vote for pot should not be in the state government either.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Okay, I see a hand here on the far end. Yes.
Hi, Kimberly Peel, 4318 Samoset, and I am here today to voice support for the ice rink in the Centennial Commons Park. I disagree with a lot of the negative feedback about the location of the rink that I've seen online. I want to remind everyone that there is a majority of us who do not join or participate in those forums online, and I'm here to ask that things move forward based on the facts, because from what I see out there, there's a lot of inaccurate facts circulating out there. My understanding is that this rink involves a temporary installation to see how well it will work. The location of the park just makes sense, as it is in the center of downtown and brings attention to the new park. I can tell you that many families that I spoke to prefer and are very excited about the location downtown, instead of it being at a more isolated park. It will provide families with a lot of options to make it a full day outing after a day of skating. There are restaurants to eat in and to get warm in after their day of skating, and will allow for a complete downtown experience in a festive setting. There's convenient parking with walking distance to the park and local businesses. I really believe that the rink in the downtown location will make it an amazing experience for my family and many others that I've spoken to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. P. All right. Anybody else tonight? I see one here at the corner. Yep, in the back.
Phyllis Salter, you've heard a lot of this, but mine's shorter. So in just the last couple of commission meetings, I've learned about of serious issues in 3 areas: Arden Place, Lawson Park, and West Webster, all of which have situations that negatively affect their largest investments. The first can be cured, hopefully soon. The second can be modified and paid for by those responsible without using our tax money. And the third, they will have forever to view the monstrosity in their next door, across the street, all over that neighborhood. You'll be able to see this monstrosity. And it's encroaching on the residents' domains. Not fair. Prior to that, we learned about road diets, that they were approved by this commission while ignoring the studies and residents. Many of them, when asked, didn't know about it, and they were quite puzzled and couldn't understand why anyone would want to do that, as it would make them more difficult for them. Many others are just very, very angry about it. She told you that. I was surprised to see a plan for a road diet on 11 Mile. You can correct me if I'm wrong, because this was new to me. Seems like many plans and those to come just further shove all traffic through the neighborhoods. What is the cost of these road diets? What is the cost of these road islands, which may have pretty flowers downtown now, but have yellow bases with marks on them, some of them which are tire marks for some reason? Is putting these in the city street across from driveways dangerous? How much is the maintenance? Where is the transparency that we shouldn't have to dig for? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Yes, sir, in the back.
How you doing? My name is Rick Blazing. I live at 429 Royal. I just jotted down some notes. I'm kind of talking more about the ice rink. I live at 429 Royal. Me and my girlfriend, we have 4 children that go to Royal Oak schools. I want to talk again more about the ice rink that's at Centennial Park. I think it'd be a great addition to the parks and entertainment that we already have downtown. Me and my family went to Winter Blast last time, and we enjoyed our time we spent down there with all our friends and neighbors. I hear there's been some kickback on the proposal. I do wish that we do go through with it, because I do believe it'll be a great city benefit. The city will benefit from it financially. It's just from what I've gotten out of that. I also do believe that we will recoup the money that we spend on it, if not more. And as a family in the city, I think the addition would be great for the city, and I would like it to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Yes, sir.
How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
My name's Zachary Vanek. I live at 316 West LaSalle. And I'm just here tonight to talk about the rink also. I'm a head coach for the Royal Oak Titans youth football team. I'm very involved in the community with coaching, as well as I do soccer. I have 5 kids at 3 different levels of our school system. 2 at Oak Ridge, 1 at Roms, 2 at Royal Oak High School, where I'm a graduate, 03 when it was Kimball. My grandfather was Gary Vanek. He served the community for many years as he was head of the teachers union, ended up being a state rep and everything. But I have the pleasure of working with kids in our community constantly. And I worked the event last year and saw their faces and saw the excitement that they had with the ice rink and everything else surrounding it. And these kids are our future, and creating more things for them to do is a good thing. And that's why I constantly am volunteering at any chance that I have to do things for them. So I just think the approval of it and continuing to give our children and our future opportunities to do fun things is great, because you can't put a cost or a price on memories and on our future. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll be with you next year with 3 in 3 different schools. I might call you up on some tips. I'm not sure how we're logistically going to make it.
Yeah, it's the times. We make it work though.
I didn't think comment was supposed to be during...
All right, who's next? Yes, sir. Come on.
pretty brief. My name's Jeff Kopacki. I'm at 420 Josephine Avenue. I'm here to speak in support of the ice rink. It's a great opportunity for people to come together. Any opportunity like that in the city is great. I haven't lived here my whole life. I'm not one of the people that graduated from the high school here. My son did. Been here for about 10 years. Coached youth football with Zach for a number of years. It's my first year not coaching. I'm not going to say I don't miss it, but work kind of got busy. So I just think it's an opportunity for the city to have everybody, like you said, for Winterfest. People come to Winterfest, and if you can have it here longer, maybe it's something we can do every year. Maybe it's something that can always be there, maintained, throughout several winters. I don't see why it would not be prosperous. I don't see how it could not make money for the city. There's always things going on downtown. Businesses stay busy that way. And it's an opportunity for youth organizations to have fundraisers, to continue to grow their teams and grow their organizations. So I'm definitely going to vote yes on the ice rink, and I think it'll help the community. That's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Kopacki. Anybody else tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to close public comment and bring the meeting back to this side of the table. Appreciate everybody making it out tonight. But that brings us to item number 6, which is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent agenda this evening? Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, Mayor. Item P2.
Oh, P2. Okay. For a second there, I was... Okay, P2. Senior Services Aging in Place Task Force update.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right. The consent agenda now consists of meeting minutes from September 12th, claims from the 20th and 23rd, special pay, and September 23rd, 2022, approval of purchase orders, approval of the appointments of 44th District Court magistrates, approval of special event permit, Fraternal Order of Eagles charity event, approval of 2023 Michigan Department of Transportation annual permit, approval of transferred road jurisdiction Main Street south of 10 Mile, approval of license agreement 1821 North Campbell, grant of easement DTE Electric, the Royal Oak Public Library, proclamation designating September 2022 as National Recovery Month, proclamation designating September 22 National Suicide Prevention Month, and proclamation designating October 5th, 2022 Energy Efficiency Day. Commission for the Arts recommendation for public art requests, Pet Supplies Plus. Commission for the Arts recommendation approval of donation and installation agreements, and Commission for the Arts recommendation approval to release public art. And then receive and file the August 2022 investment report in the State of Michigan Indigent Defense Commission grant agreement for state fiscal year 2023. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as read? We have a motion by Commissioner Perush. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. P2, Senior Services Aging in Place Task Force. Commissioner Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to take a minute to bring this out and focus a spotlight on the work of this task force. We've been with a COVID delay that affected our ability to operate. We, this past January, came back into full gear with 6 work groups with experts and residents evaluating the needs of or making recommendations for our senior services and programming and facilities in 6 subject areas. And we've now created a draft report, and the month of the month of October, we will be bringing that report out for public comment through a variety of vehicles. There will be a community open house on October 22nd at the Senior Center. This is a drop-in event. There will be tables set up so people can come in and look, focus on the areas that they're interested in. We will have copies available at the Senior Center and the library. We will be reaching out to boards, commissions, committees, nonprofits to offer speakers to them. We will have an online survey and we'll be going to the 3 senior facilities, Barton Towers, Royal Oak Manor, which we just heard about, and the one on 13 Mile. So really a very, very full court press to get information out. And I would say that, I mean, if any people listening are interested in participating in it, our staff person handling this is Susan Barkman in the city manager's office, and I know she would be happy to hear from people and send them a copy of the plan if they want that. So with that update, are there any questions?
Just a quick question, Commissioner Douglas.
Yes.
Anybody is open and encouraged to participate, not just seniors. For example, folks that, may be approaching, maybe they're still working and they want to have input to the services that they'll have, for the next 20, 30, 40 years.
The premise of this, it comes under the umbrella, the AARP's umbrella of age-friendly communities. The point being that cities that are friendly and welcoming to seniors are also friendly and welcoming to people of all ages. And there are, family members and caregivers who need to know this information and who may be affected. So yes, it is absolutely, we are looking for multi-generational input on it.
Oh, very good. Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have 2 questions. One, can you give us a sneak peek of like some of the things that might be that have been recommended by the AARP and how we might improve our senior services as a result of what we're doing right now?
One of the biggest challenges is the condition of housing. We do have a program in the city where low-income households can get money to do improvements like ramps, hand bars, and so forth, and repairs in homes, but that's only available to people of a certain income level, whereas and we know that people want to age in place, they want to stay in their homes, and we want to help them stay in their homes, so finding resources to do that is going to be, and that's going to be a challenge without question. I chaired the communications work group, and that really touches the work of all of the other work groups. And as robust as our communication programs are in the city, with our quarterly newsletter, with our website, with our weekly e-blast, there are still people who aren't touched, who may be isolated, who may not certainly have a computer, maybe not a phone. So we've got some programs or some recommendations to bring, to help people access the information that's available. And Oakland County has just completed a study of this and is launching a task force committee to address the needs of seniors in the county. We have good relationships there, and so we will definitely be looking to partner with Oakland County whenever we can to take advantage of their assets.
So, looking at the things that we might add and, the different improvements that we're looking at, is there enough funding existing right now to make that happen?
No. We have a plan. It will be implemented to the extent possible. There's always low-hanging fruit, and that's where we will start. But some of these things may require the city departments, city functions to operate differently. And that's a long-term plan. And we do look to integrate the work that we're doing here, just as we did with the sustainability plan and into the master planning process. So that as we look at, for example, housing needs for people who can't stay in their own homes, that may be affected by our land use decisions. So we will integrate these results in with that process. Gesundheit.
So then if the millage were to pass, that would greatly increase our ability to hit all these goals. Given the needs in the community, the millage will help, but we will need to look for other sources of funding or reconfigure our decisions to meet these needs that are of high demand. Great, thank you.
Anybody else?
And if there are other questions, I'll move to receive and file the report.
A motion by Commissioner Douglas, here a second. Second by Commissioner Prush. Discussion? Thank you for the report. With none, Commissioner Prush. Sorry.
Just very briefly, Commissioner Douglas and I were fortunate enough to visit the Royal Oak Manor at their open house that they had. And those of you who were not there, you should take an opportunity to go see it. It is extraordinary. It's state of the art. It is gorgeous. You won't believe it. based upon what it had looked like before. It's head and shoulders above what they had before, and they're very fortunate. But one of the things that came out of that meeting was that HUD is allocating more units of subsidized housing to that specific facility than they had before. They had a certain allocation of a number of their apartments that were subsidized for low-income residents. HUD has just allocated another block of them, which is a significant block. But they emphasized to me in the discussions as we were doing the tour that they have an extraordinarily long waiting list of people who would like to live there in the subsidized housing because of their low income. And they're just, they're waiting years for a facility to be available. So the need is really extraordinary. And it's something that we're not going to be able to solve as a community by ourselves. We're going to need assistance from the state of Michigan and from the federal government and other agencies that are geared toward this as well. So that brought it home to us that housing is a huge issue for so many seniors, and the affordability of housing is such a huge issue for so many seniors. So I can understand why it's one of the things at the top of the list of this report that is a key note and issue that we're not going to be able to solve by ourselves, and we're not going to be able to solve it overnight. But it's a huge need that the community is going to have to address somehow.
Anybody else? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's received. All right, that brings us to item 7, approval of amendment Historic Preservation Ordinance, Chapter 82, Historic Designation Farmers Market, first reading.
Okay, good evening, Mayor Fournier and members of the City Commission. So what is presented to you is an amendment to the Chapter 82, the Historic Preservation, which includes the Farmers Market facility. This process started 4 years ago when the committee, the study committee, the Historic District Study Committee began looking at the farmers market and the potential historic designation. There was a preliminary report that was presented to the Planning Commission that was in October of 2019, which there was no objection to move forward on that. In this past year, the Commission directed the drafting of the ordinance, and the last part that was needed is a property survey delineating which elements. So the farmers market that we're speaking of, this pertains to essentially the building in a small area around it and all the way to 11 Mile.
The whole parking lot.
Correct. It does not include the entire parking lot. So it includes the structure, and that's ready to move forward as we do have the survey that was completed by the professional surveyor. So this is the first reading of this ordinance and is presented for your consideration.
All right, questions for Mr. Brake? Commissioner Prush.
I have a question about the extent of the survey. There has been discussion in the past about the potential of adding additional restroom facilities to the farmers market as opposed to building an individual self-standing restroom facility in the middle of Centennial Commons. My question is the survey, is there enough wiggle room in the survey so that if there was an addition onto the farmers market, for example, restrooms, a bigger restroom facility, we would not have to redo the whole survey and we would not have to re-amend the whole ordinance? Or is it really tight around the building?
The short answer, it's tight around the building. So the restroom facility that we've discussed would be a separate structure that would be standalone. But at the same time, I think in fairness that it should go before the Historic Review Committee, even though it wouldn't be under their purview. We wouldn't want to disturb the historical character.
Right.
So we'd want something that certainly wouldn't look like an afterthought, but rather would integrate it as part of it. So I asked the same question earlier today, that we're contemplating that, but the plans that we're looking at, that this is a separate building, so that that would be, the farmers markets wouldn't be, you have to be burdened that they would have to be open anytime that the public restroom would be open. So this would not be where we have to go through and amend the ordinance, but just rest assured that to go through that extra process to make sure that the appearance from the outside looks integrated in with the building.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Commissioner Colo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to be clear, actually, the survey includes the patios, includes both the east and the west patios and the north and the south.
That is correct.
Yeah, so it's not tight on the designation is not tight on the building, it actually expands onto those walkways and those right-of-ways.
It does. I would not imagine that these restrooms, it's not like it's a building addition. They would be part of, but as standalone as I described.
But inside the district, because the district is what becomes historic, not the building. Actually, it's the district. The building happens to sit in it. But also, this is why we encourage our residents to make their homes historic. The Historic District Study Committee is not out to stop people from changing a house once it becomes historic. They want to work with you and make sure that you maintain the period architecture as you're doing it. So, the same way we would have had a piece of modern art toilet restroom facility outside the farmers market now. I think that's the type of review process that we would go through if we were to ask for that.
But you are correct. It is. We wouldn't be building a restroom facility and taking out a walkway in order to. It's again taking all of that into consideration in the design of such a facility.
Any other questions? Commissioner Colo.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the farmers market historic designation on first reading.
Motion by Commissioner Colo. We have a second by Commissioner Perush. Discussion? Just say I'm shocked because I thought a few of you, almost all of you, actively worked so hard to, shut down the farmers market and close it. But, cleverly you've come in and saved the farmers market. I don't know how you do it. You guys amaze me every time. Just unbelievable. But all kidding aside, this is a really good thing. I mean, it's been a fixture, a landmark, and not just in terms of its historical significance, but we figured out a way to continually use the farmers market as a base operation for many activities, whether it be vaccination, getting produce, literally of its main cause, out to the public, and using it for other activities needed to support the public as a whole. And so it's good to know that when we all move on from these seats that this preservation will be in place, and the market will continue to thrive for another century plus. So, all right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. That brings us to 8, Planning Commission recommendation, PUD rezoning of 230 East Harrison Avenue, second reading. I see Mr. Twing.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the commission. You have seen this project on numerous occasions in the past. Most recently, I believe it was at your July 25th meeting where you held or acted on the first reading of the request to rezone this property from mixed use to a planned unit development. Generally, as part of the second reading, we present you with a signed development agreement, and that is in front of you this evening as part of the second reading. The reason it's not on a consent agenda is the petitioner has asked for a modification of one of the contingencies that was previously included from the Planning Commission, that being that the Planning Commission recommended that the developer provide a car lift for each tenant in this 32-unit building that has more than one vehicle. The petitioner has asked, and his plans have included that they only be required to provide 8 of those lifts. And so that's why this is not on the consent agenda in front of you as a second reading. You may recall that this is a 32-unit residential building. It is the one that's on the corner of Harrison and Delaware. and you did require that they provide 2 affordable units. Those provisions are in the development agreement. The only modification really being requested by the petitioner is related to the car lifts. And I know they're here if you have questions of them.
Questions for Mr. Twing? Just for clarity, it's 8 car lifts?
8 car lifts is what they're requesting to be limited to.
Maximum
Rather,
8, or 8 in total.
yeah, there's 32 parking spaces in the ground floor plus 2 handicap, and then there's 8 that have car lifts, I believe, for a total of 42 parking spaces for the 32 units. The condition was that the Planning Commission recommended to this body was that it require a car lift for every tenant that had more than 1 car. So we're looking for that to be modified.
Commissioner Fellow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How many, I know this is a PUD, so it's a little different, but how many spots, if this is regular zoning, how many spots of parking would be required, or would they be seeking a variance for tonight if this were regular zoning?
On the first reading, the request was the zoning ordinance requires 2 for each unit, so they would have been required to have 64 for 32 units. They're providing, under the proposed plan, as I said, 42, and that includes 8 lifts.
So 42 plus 8, so 50 spots, or 42 minus 8?
They were basically providing 1 surface spot for every unit.
Plus 8.
1 plus, okay. 1 spot plus 8, okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Any other questions? Does anyone want to hear from the petitioner? Or does anyone want to make a motion? Commissioner Perush?
I'll move approval of this on second reading.
Motion by Commissioner Perush. Is there a second? A second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion. Is it Commissioner Macy? Okay, it's a solid. Commissioner Macy.
Well, I was hesitant because I think this is actually for the developer, so I think I might have missed my chance, but maybe I can ask Mr. Twing. I'm just wondering, so it was recommended that they all have them. They're going to put in 8. Is it possible that the other spots could have those lifts, like at some point in the future, or are they being built such that that wouldn't be a possibility? Like, let's say the 9th tenant comes in and is like, I really need to put my second car here, I'll give you $60,000 to put in a car lift. Is it?
I would defer that question to the developer.
We'll just take a yes or no from there, head nod.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good.
I'm just curious. All right,
Sorry.
thank you.
I try to stick to the rules. I'm horrible at it.
Sorry. My hand was
Commissioner
fastened.
Macy, creates problems for me with sticking to the rules.
Total chaos.
Commissioner Colo?
I guess I would also ask Mr. Train, would the petitioner pay for those, or would the person who's getting the spot have to pay for those?
How's it Mr. Twing's business?
I don't know, I can't say the developer. Or if we would let the developer speak for a moment.
Of course it's good.
Does it matter for your decision? I mean, if you guys want to vote to,
We have a motion.
we got a motion on the table, so you'd have to, this would get really complicated. If it's really important to you, Commissioner Colo, I'm sure we can find a gyration of the
I
rules.
think I can answer. They're not going to put it in for somebody that's expensive. Just because somebody requested. That's why they're saying max 8.
Yeah.
I think the answer would probably be is that we sat at planning. And I think not to answer on their behalf, but if the market demands, that they have that in there, they would find a way to do it and pass it through and rent. At this point, most developers, this is both coming from my experience here and at planning and in my private life dealing a lot with parking. A lot of communities are going to 0 parking minimums. The developers are putting the right amount of parking in that they believe fits their building and needs and clientele the best. People moving to Royal Oak are a lot of single car families. We noticed that with the development on Main across from the hotel. And they put actually car sharing in there, 2 spots, and they're not full. I checked in on it, and they're not using up all the parking, even though they had a reduced amount as well. So I think that if they can't lease out those buildings, I think or those bedrooms, then they'll, those apartments, then they'll add the lifts, or they have to lower their price, which makes them more affordable. I'm just speculating, if that helps. But it's up to you. If you want to pursue, we can do the, I appreciate the question. I think it's a good question. Just want to make sure if that answer satisfied you.
I heard you loud and clear, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for saving me the Robert's Rules gyration to get the question answered. Anybody else? All right. Well, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Congratulations, gentlemen. Look forward to seeing the development get up there and get those affordable units in there and, seeing how the parking goes. Maybe now you can answer the question real quick for Commissioner Colo.
Too late. I don't care anymore.
You don't care anymore? Okay. All right.
I'm on to the next thing.
No worries.
Let's talk about fences. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming in. All right. Approval of amendments, fence ordinance, first reading. I see Mr. Twing here.
I will lead this one off. You may recall back in May of this year, the City Commission got a commission letter from the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeals, who had met jointly to discuss potential ordinance amendments based on their discussion of various issues that had become before the two boards. One of those items was the fence ordinance and how fences were dealt with on corner lots. At your May meeting, you concurred with that discussion and directed staff to work on amending the fence ordinance in specifics to address the type of fences that would be allowed, the height of fences that would be allowed on corner lots. I did include an illustration in the packet pursuant to the Commission's request. I'll go down to it real quick. If you look at the attachment on the board, the hatched striped area that's in red, under the zoning ordinance requires that to be considered a front yard setback, and 6-foot fences were prohibited in that area on corner lots based on the configuration of the lots next door. If you look at Lot A, you'll see it fronts, and then Lot B fronts a different direction. Because of that configuration, the fence ordinance prohibits 6-foot fences in that striped area. The Zoning Board of Appeals concern was that they were granting most of these variance requests when they saw these come before them. They thought that it was something that should be revised. The Planning Commission concurred. However, since it was a separate standalone ordinance in the fence ordinance, we simply brought it forth without having to go through the Planning Commission hearing and so forth. That was the primary purpose, and then sitting down with the building official this evening, who the building division administers the fence ordinance, there were some other minor tweaks and reorganizations that we felt we could accomplish at the same time and address issues. Primarily, we took any references to the zoning ordinance out of the fence ordinance, again, because we didn't want to tweak the fence ordinance or the zoning ordinance's definition of a front yard, and they would impact each other. The fence ordinance had it, so we just wanted to separate them. So one of the big things we did was take a lot of the references to the zoning ordinance out, and then we reorganized it. But other than the provisions regarding the height on a corner lot, what we've proposed is, if you see the dark purple, a 6-foot fence would now be allowed in that location on any one of those lots. Lot A could put 6 foot out as its common property line. Lot B could put a 6-foot fence on its property.
a Lot C could do the similar. So the illustration is trying to identify where we would now allow 6-foot fences in terms of heights to be located. Doesn't address material or anything like that. That's still open to what's in there. It's just where it would be allowed without a variance. The light purple is where it's currently allowed under the current fence ordinance. That's the primary change to the fence ordinance, other than the reorganization and adding definitions to deal with a front yard or rear yard, side yards, because we took the reference out to the zoning ordinance. Mr. Craig is here if you've got any questions of him on the fence ordinance and specifics, because it's, again, his division actually administers it, and he spent most of the time on rewriting it. The Zoning Board of Appeals is simply the appeal body under the fence ordinance.
Questions for Mr. Twain? We'll go with Commissioner Macy and then Commissioner Colo.
This is probably for Mr. Craig. I'm just wondering, so I see a ton of these, looking at these lots, these corner lots, I can think off the top of my head of like 5 houses that actually do have 6 feet here, and you're saying, we basically always grant the variance when they're asked. In what circumstances would you not grant the variance? Like, is there some time that we actually really don't want them to have the 6-foot fence there that is included in the ordinance or not?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. I don't have anything to do with the approvals of a variance. That all goes through the appeal board. There are lots of fences that exist right now that do not comply with the ordinance, that were not given a permit or an approval. That's if you remember previous meetings from years and years ago, we talked about the fences that don't comply, and we all just chose to not do anything.
Okay. So, but I guess what I'm asking is, so you don't grant the variances, I get that, but Mr. Twing was saying this is sort of, we're trying to line up with reality, because in fact, if someone were to come and ask about this, we'd say, fine, put a 6-foot fence there. So the question I'm getting at is that there a time when, for these, I'm gesturing at the drawing, that we don't want there to be a 6-foot fence on a situation like this, that, you see what I'm saying? Because we're now putting in the ordinance, okay, it's fine, but is there a time we want to say no?
No, I don't have an issue with issuing these. We only say no because the ordinance says you can't allow it.
Okay.
We say no, they go for an appeal. 90-some% of the time, I think, they get it. And why they don't get it sometimes, I don't know.
You don't know. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Colo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just say I think this is a great idea. I mean, this is something we hear time and time again in the community, people trying to get variances, and the ZBA and Planning Commission brought it to us also. I have a question more administratively here about the resolution presented before us. Specifically, I see, as attachment 1, there is a amended ordinance, which I believe is what we would intend on passing. But then the now therefore be it resolved and be it finally resolved section kind of has 4 different sections that are outside the ordinance. And I guess I'm confused as to what actually goes into the ordinance here. Especially because section 2 of the now finally be resolved talks about exhibit 1, exhibit 2, and exhibit 3, but we actually have attachments. I want to make sure that if we pass this here tonight, as we keep the records for the city, that's all correct. And I don't know if that's a question for Mr. Leal, Mr. Brake, or Mr. Trank.
Well, the resolution that's in the commission letter was provided to staff from Mr. Leal. From my standpoint, the ordinance that you're approving is the clean copy of attachment 1.
Okay.
I think the resolution that references the exhibits, as it says, exhibit 1 was just a red line version, or a clean copy, and then it explains what the other exhibits were. The final version that we bring to you on second reading would not include any of those extra exhibits. It would just be the clean copy.
Mr. Douglas.
So the wheels of government grind slowly. The Planning Commission, the Zoning Board has talked about this for a long time, and it's been like a year and a half, I think, since the ZBA and Planning Commission met together and identified this as one of the problems that we wanted to solve. And with guidance and leadership by the staff and the support of both of those bodies, we've come to something that will really benefit people. I mean, there aren't a lot of corner lots there, but people who live on corner lots want privacy along their side streets. So I'm really pleased that we're addressing a real problem and making a change in a lot of people's lives. Well done.
Does anyone want to make a motion based on that positive?
Yeah, I will move where did it go? That we adopt the fence ordinance text amendments upon first reading and direct staff to prepare them for final disposition.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas, second by Commissioner Dubak. Discussion? Commissioner Dubak?
Yeah, I'll just echo that I think this is good responsive government. We keep seeing the same issue coming forward again and again to the ZBA. And granting those variances, it only makes sense to bring our code and our ordinances aligned to what we think is a logical resolution of this, as opposed to making people keep coming forward to ask for variances.
I mean, it's a cost to the neighbors. It's time delay. You know, they just want to get a fence put in, and next thing they find out from the fence contractor, they can't. And then they come to the ZBA, pay their fee. Staff has to work on it. You know, it just seems like getting rid of some of the red tape. You know, it's like building what do they say? I don't always agree with this, but, you know, build the sidewalk where the people have walked. You know, it's kind of like one of those things. Commissioner Perush?
It's also going to save a lot of money for a lot of homeowners, because I know of some homeowners in our neighborhood who, knowing that they could not put a side fence up, invested in a heck of a lot of landscaping in order to make some kind of a screening. A lot of evergreens, a lot of arborvitaes, a lot of pine trees, and so on and so forth, some of which lived, some of which didn't make it all the way through. And then they would have to replace. And that's really an expensive proposition in order to get privacy. So there are a lot of people who instead of just putting up a fence, obeyed the rules and did not put up a fence and invested a lot of money in some kind of screening. And now knowing that they won't have to do that is a good thing.
Commissioner Colo?
You know, there's also probably a good amount of people who were denied at the ZBA for whatever reason, may have just done nothing. We might want to look at a way of communicating to maybe past applicants who've been denied in the last handful of years and let them know that, you know, their roadblock is now gone. They have the ability to put this up if they would like.
Yeah, kind of thinking about that point too, I'm sure we have a lot of fences that may have been put in years ago that have kind of been left, and they've been nervous to fix them. So we'll have some better, you know, curbside appeal probably coming as well now too. So, all right. Well, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. So that brings us to item 10. I see Mr. Murphy there. Approval of Planning Commission recommendation for professional consulting services, agreement for a new master plan. Lots of work put into this, by the way, before Mr. Murphy starts.
Good evening. In August of last year, the City Commission did concur with the Planning Commission to undertake a new master plan, and subsequently, a request for qualifications was issued to develop a list of firms that would be eligible to respond to an RFP, or a request for proposals. There were 11 firms that responded to the RFQ, and the Planning Commission narrowed that list down to 5 firms that would be eligible to submit for the RFP. There were 3 firms that actually responded to that RFP out of the 5. And the Planning Commission interviewed each firm at the June meeting. Hopefully you've had the opportunity to look at the RFP responses and to watch those video segments of the interviews. And the Planning Commission's recommended DPZ Co-Design as their preferred firm to assist the city in development of a new master plan at the bid price of $300,000. And so staff's worked with DPZ Co-Design to develop a contract for you to consider tonight. And that's part of a suggested motion, as well as necessary budget adjustment to cover the slight cost difference as to what's been allocated in the budget versus what the suggested bid price is.
and to enter into contract. So you have that in front of you tonight. If you have questions for us, we'd be happy to try and answer those. Questions? Mr. Macy.
So this is more than we thought it was going to be, right? Like this is more than we put aside? No?
No.
I thought we said 200,000.
No, the set aside amount for this year's budget is $300,000.
Oh, all right. I was going to say, it's funny they all ended up so close to 300,000, but
They can all go on Google search in our documents and find out what. No.
yeah, right. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I'll move approval of the selection of DPC co-design to lead our master planning effort.
A motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second?
And if I may,
Second by Commissioner Prush. Okay.
and if I may just add, this is, I'm super excited to work with this firm. They are pioneers in new town designing. They recognize that towns that were organized on a grid, that were walkable, with amenities that were arranged around neighborhoods were an ideal and desirable configuration. And they'll bring, I mean, that's us already. So, they're coming to a place where we already have those assets in place. I'm happy that they've partnered with a local firm, McKenna Associates. McKenna's helping with our Parks and Rec Master Plan, right?
Yes.
Yes. And also one of their other partners is Sharon Woods, who some of you may know fulfilled the contract that we did a few years ago to do our housing demand study. So she's got a knowledge of Royal Oak, and she has a good idea of what is practical in terms of building and building design and configuration, especially in terms of housing. So I think this is an excellent team to lead the effort.
And I will echo that. And what I'll also say is that the Planning Commission had pretty robust discussion and debate, all in a very positive way. All the last bidders were all highly capable of doing this for us. And the Planning Commission, we all kind of came to different levels of answers, but what it really shows is that there was significant input and debate from our planning board, which is very important to get to the decision where we're at right now. All right, the motion on the table, any more discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. He did a lot of work too. Took a lot of feedback from the Planning Commission, very in great spirits, and came back and churned things like a miracle worker. So we appreciate your effort. It's just started. Yeah, he's like, that wasn't the hard part.
Yeah. Good work tonight all around.
Yeah.
Community Development Department.
All right. Anything else on the agenda tonight? Oh yeah, that whole thing with the approval of the downtown outdoor ice rink agreement. Since it's agreement, Mr. Leal, should we hand it over to you?
Yes, Mayor. Mayor and Commissioners, I'm bringing before you for your consideration a downtown outdoor ice rink agreement. We've been negotiating, myself and Mr. Witz and his partner have been negotiating this for several weeks, and we finally come to an agreement to present to you. Before I begin, I just want to give you by way of background. At your July 25th, 2022 meeting, Deputy City Manager Todd Fenton presented to you Mr. Witz's proposal for an ice skating rink down in the downtown area in Centennial Commons Park, which proposed to be operated between November 18th, 2022 through February 19th, 2023. As part of that proposal, Mr. Witz was proposing to construct, manage, deconstruct the ice skating rink, and remediate the site post-deconstruction. Included at that presentation was a preliminary operating budget, which was seeking, as part of the overall cost of the skating rink, of $421,000. Mr. Witz offered to raise $100,000 in sponsorships to reduce that down to $321,000, which would be requested of the City of Royal Oak and the DDA. And finally, Mr. Witz had proposed to reimburse the city's contribution out of the revenues earned during the skating rink's operation. At the end of the presentation, this commission adopted a resolution to proceed forward and negotiate with Mr. Witz's company, Jonathan Witz and Associates, also known in the referred to in the agreement as JWA, contingent on certain conditions being satisfied. Those three contingencies included that there be a direct electric power source provided by DTE to the point in the park, that the $100,000 in sponsorships be obtained before the execution of an agreement, and that the DDA would contribute at least $100,000. During the scope of the negotiations, some of the terms that relate to the contingencies, and also as to how conceptually how this contract would operate, morphed into a different form, which I'll highlight. I've included in your cover letter various key business terms. The changes in the original proposal to what's before you today appear in bullet points numbers 1, 3, and 5, and I'll just briefly touch on those. Under bullet point 1, the way it reads now in paragraph 3A of the proposed agreement, the city will separately provide at its cost permanent electrical power to a point designated in Centennial Commons. The original proposal included in the operating budget a cost for the provision of the electric infrastructure to power that. That has been taken out. The city has taken that responsibility on its own, and at your last meeting, this commission adopted a resolution authorizing the city manager to spend the money for a permanent infrastructure for electric power. So that's out. Any references you see to electric power in the current operating budget refers to how much it would cost JWA to pay the ongoing electrical usage during the term, as well as I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, city manager, a temporary transformer that would be necessary, and that cost has been reduced. So that's one change. The third one is, or bullet point number 3, securing a minimum of 100,000 in sponsorships. And as Mr. Witz has presented to the commission at a previous meeting and during negotiations, he doesn't have the 100,000 yet, but he still wants to proceed forward at this stage. So what in lieu of having a firm 100,000 before the execution of this agreement, he has proposed to guarantee any shortfall in sponsorships to be paid out of his company's funds. So if he's had 60 and he can't get the other 40,000, that he would be responsible and contribute that amount, that shortfall amount. So that would be another change in the original proposal. And the last one deals with the way revenues are accumulated. Originally, the city would have had to have paid, and the DDA, if the DDA contributed 100,000, the city would pay in 221,000 upfront or shortly after the execution of the agreement. Under the proposal that Mr. Witz or JWA has proposed, the city would not be contributing any money initially. And in exchange for that, not the waiving of the initial contribution, JWA would use all revenues collected during the operation of the skating rink to offset the costs of the rink rental, staffing, site electric power, construction, deconstruction, support structures, ongoing operations, and site restoration. And so the amount, this would allow all that to be paid during the duration of the event, and at the end, during the first and then ultimately the second audit, when the revenue and expenditures are all tabulated and verified by the city finance director or her designees, we would find out exactly what the city's financial contribution might be. Under the agreement, the city faces a maximum financial obligation of $190,000, but any revenue that's obtained during the operations would basically reduce that number either to a smaller number, or it's possible to also have a positive, which would be profit and revenue being returned to the city. So There are other provisions that are listed in the key business terms that are listed there. I can elaborate on those if you wish, or if not, then there is, if the City Commission determines that these key business terms that are listed in your cover letter, as well as the rest of the agreement, are acceptable and beneficial to the City of Royal Oak, then I've offered the resolution on your cover letter for you to adopt.
Questions for Mr. Leo? Okay, we'll go with Commissioner Perush and then Commissioner Colo.
I have a question about I guess the only term I can think of is hardware of the actual rink itself. The stuff that the rink is made out of, the support structures as well as the rink surface. During the course of this agreement, and then I guess at the end of the agreement, who owns that? Whose equipment, rink equipment, is that?
Under the operating budget and the proposal, it is a company that JWA would be renting the equipment. I mean, as far as the rink equipment. If you're talking about the electric.
Not the electric.
Okay.
It's the other stuff that you would need to put in place in order to have an operational rink. The ice surface, the support structures. That would be leased equipment from?
I would defer to Mr. Witz to answer that question specifically, because I think the answer is yes, but I would let Mr. Witz actually, if this commission desires to have him verify who owns the equipment.
Okay, and the follow-up question, and this is the more serious question to me, is say at the end of the year, we decide, yes, an ice rink is something that we want to continue to do next year, but we do not want to enter into a contract with JWA. We want to do it all on our own. It would then be the responsibility of the city to either purchase the equipment or lease the equipment from a third-party vendor in order to create the ice rink.
That would be correct.
Okay, that was my basic question. I don't need any further confirmation from Mr. Witz or anybody.
Okay. Mr. Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify a couple things that we've heard during public comment today. Mr. Leal, as the agreement's written, the proceeds of the rink, of the entire operation, who's the benefactor of that?
Benefactor or beneficiary?
Geez,
Who gets it?
You asked a lawyer that question?
Like a lawyer?
Well, one of the lawyers asked for this. Yeah. No,
Beneficiary.
Beneficiary.
Okay.
The benefactor is the people of Royal Oak, right?
Any revenues that exceed the city's maximum financial obligation of $190,000 would be the city's.
But every dollar that someone pays to rent time on the ice or for a skate rental or the profits from if there's a hot chocolate hut, that all goes against the city's cost, correct?
Yes.
And then there is no management fee in this contract, correct?
That is correct.
John Witz and Associates is not making money off of these sales of any sort, correct?
Yes and no. He's not making, under the terms of the agreement, he's not making any money. However, there is a provision in the agreement that he has free use during the winter blast of the ice rink.
Yes.
And all the revenue associated with that, he would keep, with the exception of free skating to the public during that time.
Okay. So for 3 or 4 months of management, in turn, this contract is giving him the use of the ice rink during the winter blast days.
Yes.
Okay. But we still, as you said, we still get the free skating that was contractually obligated in winter blast.
Maybe we qualify what free skating is. It's for charge free skating.
Sure. Whatever the agreement says about winter blast still stands in terms of the ice time and usage that's available. So, okay, I just want to make sure that's clear that this is not, the agreement we're entering into is a management agreement. The money would go to the city of Royal Oak. If there excess money, that can go into other things in the city of Royal Oak, into this park. But this, that John Woods Associates is not making money off this endeavor, so to say.
This agreement, no, there's no provision for him to make money off this agreement.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
We'll go with Commissioner Hunt and then Commissioner Douglas.
I just wanted to piggyback off of Commissioner Perush's question. So JWA is renting or leasing the rink itself, but it's going to be on city property. So who is responsible or liable for that rink itself? Would it be JWA since they're leasing it, or the city because it's on our property?
It'd be JWA.
They have the liability over that
Yes,
rink?
there's a liability provision written in there and identification, that they have to, any injuries that are sustained, they have their own insurance to actually
Or
protect
damage to the rink.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You tell the lawyers something, Commissioner Douglas.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Lyall, Mr. Brake, we have an existing agreement with JWA for Winter Blast. And that agreement extends through February of 2023. And the terms of that contract say that JWA will provide a skating rink as part of Winter Blast. If we do not approve the rink in Centennial Commons Park, what's the alternative? Would it return to the farmer's market parking lot as it did last year? And then what are the implications of that given the operations of the farmer's market? And maybe that's you, maybe it's Mr. Filipski. I'll let you decide.
I can agree that under the contract, if the current contract before you is denied, under the Winter Blast agreement, an ice skating rink would have to be set up for during the festival an additional 14 days minimum in the month of February and 3 additional weekends from Thursday to Sunday. So that would be a requirement. And where it would be placed, assuming, and this is Aaron Filipski's probably the better question, if no one has reserved it during that time, then it would most likely be in the farmer's market where it was held last year.
So that is correct. It's not stated in the location within the agreement, but it would make sense. And so Mr. Filipski can talk about, he did poll the market manager. There's some issues having to do with the west parking lot. Could that be accommodated? Yes. So, but I'll let Mr. Filipski respond to the specifics.
Yeah, if you could repeat the question that.
It was referring to is that if the commission were to revert this back to the farmer's market, but there would be that 3-week period, not the 3-month, but back to the original concept that was conducted February of this year, if we were looking at that same arrangement in February of 2023, what would be the impact to the farmer's market?
Well, it would be certainly significantly less than if it were throughout the duration of what's being proposed right now. But there are, throughout that entire time period, private events that are booked, some of which paid for exclusive use of the west lot. So there would be refunds in order if we shifted them or gave them something less than the west lot. There are those that didn't specifically require or request exclusive use of the west lot, but in any case would have an argument, I think, to say that they were getting less than, so there might be some refunds there, if that's the question. So yeah, it would be not as impactful. Certainly we could do it. We'd have to reach out to those that would be affected by that. I imagine there would be some sort of refunds issued on that, but it wouldn't be impossible, as Manager Brake had stated.
And would it be possible, while this existing contract specifies a certain period of time and dates, we could expand that if we wanted to? I mean, we had kind of a controlled or a limited schedule last time. Here we're now talking about a more expansive schedule. There might be some compromise there to provide additional skating time and leave the rink up, perhaps depending with an eye towards what other events are using the farmer's market.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, I'm done.
Commissioner Cullen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When we started doing this a couple months ago now, we had 3 conditions that we set as a commission unanimously. We said we wanted to make sure we secured $100,000 in sponsorship. We wanted to make sure we had direct shore power from DTE, and we wanted to make sure
DDA.
The DDA, thank you, gave the contribution. And we've hit all three of those contingencies. We've sent staff back to negotiate this contract multiple times. There's been a lot of hard work that's gone into this, a lot of thoughtful negotiations. So I think at this point, it's now on to us to fulfill our end, as we've discussed. So with that, I'm going to ask a couple more questions.
Before we go into another motion like we did last time, I know the operator and JWA agreement is here. I just wanted to open it up for any other questions that we may have for him, if that's all right. Does anyone have any questions for representative from JWA?
I have a question for staff.
Okay. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Mayor. So, Mr. Brigg, I think we talked early on about the city's liability, which under this contract is maxed at $190,000, pending that would be the ice rink doesn't rent a single skate and no one comes, which is highly unlikely, right? So our liability is somewhere between $0 and $190,000. Early on, we talked about potentially, because I'm seeing this as a pilot, right, where we're going to see if this works, if it's successful, if people enjoy it, if it brings something exciting and interesting to our city during the cold months. We talked about ARPA dollars potentially funding this one time as we test this to see if it is financially viable. Have we looked further into that?
I can tell you from a preliminary perspective that yes, this would be an allowable expense to reimburse that. And if you recall, we were looking at the context of the putting in the electrical line, and that we're including that as part of the park project, so that it's still an open construction project. So those costs that we would reallocate that, and we'd shift the project that we were foregoing, which was the restroom facility, that would also be eligible as well. So it would be ARPA eligible in the context of the promoter doing that, but as a new event for the city, it would not be. So if we were solely the sponsor, no, we could not have that as ARPA eligible. But since we're not going that route, it doesn't matter. So I just want to clarify. All right. So this is since he's a provider that's had festivals that have been impacted by COVID, that yes, conceivably we could pursue that route.
Okay. So in the event that nobody comes and there's this $190,000 price tag, we have a backstop if needed, to some extent.
They haven't looked at it in that context. I mean, that's something that we'd have to explore under that arrangement for, because you're talking contingency and it's a matter of looking at this as prospective in that regard.
So you're saying we should, ideal state is commit the dollars from ARPA up front and not wait for the...
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm stating that we should fully understand of what is allowable in this arrangements. And so, keep in mind that, the infrastructure construction, that if you saw the report in there, this is not a for sure thing, but because it's, our discussions with DTE and even our contractor, we are running into supply chain issues. So just being upfront about this, not to talk you out of this, but just be aware that we may have to look at alternative sources of power other than we're going to make every best possible effort to complete the construction project, but we're up against some issues that we will find out here shortly, by mid-October if the equipment comes in. So
that raises another important question. So in the contract, I think the contract is binding us to provide the power. But if this situation with DT falls through, we just have to come up with something else? Is that how the contract reads?
So that we are constructing that, but these are things that are really outside of the city's control.
Right.
So
that's kind of a heck of an unknown sitting out there.
Correct. Right.
If we can't get the direct power, JWA has the right under the termination provision to just terminate the contract, and if JWA has already made the $25,000 payment for the initial rental to secure the rental of the rink, then that would be our cost to them, $25,000.
Can we terminate if we're not able to get the power set up?
If we can't get the power.
And the alternatives are not palatable for us to supply the power to the rink. We talked about monstrous generators, we talked about an installation, a large installation right there on the park property. If we couldn't get to agreement on that as a contingency, can we cancel the contract for those reasons?
In that situation, it would have to be a mutual termination. He would have to agree, because the power to terminate if we can't supply the direct electric power lies with JWA, not with the city. And so we could always negotiate to come up to either amend the agreement to provide a different source or agree separately to do a different electric source, which is generators. And they can still go on, but do we have the ability to just terminate it if we can't get electric power under this agreement? No.
That would have to be mutual.
That'd have to be mutual.
Okay. I'm good.
Commissioner Macy.
I do have a question for Mr. Witz.
Mr. Witz, come on down. Get that Rod Roddy voice down.
Hi. So I just wanted to ask, I think we've been through this before, but I kind of want to hear it again. So in terms of how we're calculating what we expect to be the revenue, so see the 140 number, and it doesn't seem to line up well with what the revenue was for the weeks after Winter Blast for us previously, which I understand we expect November and December to be much hotter than that, but if you could run through your projections with us, that would be helpful.
Sure. The projections are based on the time of year. The Thanksgiving, weekend before Thanksgiving, leading into New Year's is the rink in Detroit does 300 to 400% of their revenue during that time, and it drops off dramatically going into the fall. So going into the winter months. So we're confident. And again, as I stated before, our projection for the amount of skating we're doing is less than 1 week of the revenue that they do in Detroit on the prime weekends that they have, by a decent amount, less than a week of what they do. And again, and the other thing that the projections are based on is that I think we have the ability to leverage a lot of good media relationships to, again, shine a light on this rink. And again, with all that's on the line here, we would be really putting our best foot forward, knowing the fact that there's been some concerns here that we would, really, not only do I think the projections are conservative, but we would be putting in extra marketing efforts based on, relationships to show that this thing, is definitely a, good situation. So, and I also, if I could comment, we would be willing to mutually allow the city to cancel if they could not provide the power. So just as a record, I do think there are a couple solutions to the power. One, is the fact that it might be coming in a little late, so there's always the delay a week. We could always use a generator for just 1 week only if we know the power's imminent. There are a lot of things I think we'll have our arms around on the 15th. And we have talked to the rink company, and they will give us into mid-October to see how these things go, but we're with you in the sense that there's no way we would, as I said in the beginning, that we would want to have the rink operate by generator. So you wouldn't need to have that ability to terminate, but just again, so you're covered. If it's not a good solution or one that makes sense, then we would be fine. But I think I should find out what that exact date is, and if we change that one clause, I could get that to Mr. Leal and say, what is the rink's defined moment, and just make a decision if they know they're going to get the proper equipment in. I think so. That's just something that we would like to do.
Thank you. Another question I have. So this is it's a different agreement than we typically have with you in terms of the way you run Arts Beats Needs and Winter Blast and Rock and Rides. And I'm just curious if you could, like, what's the benefit for the citizens of Royal Oak to do it in this manner where we bear the risk and the reward of the ice rink? Like, it seems like normally what would happen is someone would come in and provide the ice rink and, pay us a fee or something like that. And so this is it's an odd contract.
Okay, it's a fair question, but I think there's a fair answer to that. The beneficiary of the rink operating for 3 months in prime season is not our benefit. It's the city's benefit. It's an event for the residents that they can enjoy and use and come out and have experiences, and it's also going to have very positive impact on the downtown. So the reason that this is different is that we are not, we saw a vision here that we presented to everybody after Winter Blast, that the skating was raised in the farmers market, that it's not as ideal and those months were slower. So the idea of bringing it, to the citizens, I think it's the citizens and the local businesses that will benefit most, from the agreement. With regard to our benefit, there's a specific benefit to us, and we brought a specific compensation back to the city on the risk. The specific benefit is that we save $100,000 on renting the rink, and that's exactly why we're raising $100,000. And that is not, you can't just snap sponsors out of thin air. I think everybody knows from city events, finding good partners to support events are not easy. There's a lot of leveraging and track record and things that go into that. So this is not a small consideration. I think it's gotten missed in a lot of the public discourse and comment, but that $100,000 is like us handing $100,000 to the project, and that is for the exact cost that we save. We are bringing a fresh $100,000 that has nothing to do with Winter Blast. So those things balance exactly, and the city is getting the use for residents and the impact on the downtown for 12 of the 13 weeks that it would be in operation. And the one weekend that we're using it, the skating is still free to everybody. So, we're talking about just the skate rentals and, and again, if that's a specific contention, we'd have some flexibility on that too. It's just the revenue, the majority of the revenue on the weekend of Winter Blast is not there because the skating is free.
Well, I got a couple emails, Mr. Witz, regarding some of the grass. It was mentioned last time, and I think it's, we talked about it at length, but I can't remember if we tasked you with going back and getting some analysis based on the rink, its mass, and, all of that good stuff. I don't know if you have any analysis that you've been able to pull together.
Yeah, I sent a letter to Todd from a landscaping company, and we talked to a second one, that the season starts on second week of April and the 10th to the 15th as far as Michigan sod being installed. Sometimes that gets delayed from a rain perspective, so we would have a two-week contingency on that, and if that didn't work, then we would bear, as per the contract, we would bear the expense of shipping that sod in from a drier state, whether it be Indiana, they mentioned, or Kentucky. So we would truck that sod in to make sure that it was ready by Memorial Day, and that is that is something that they are extremely confident about. They put that timeline in there. And again, the Campus Martius grass is settled in by early May historically, but we would, have two contingencies. One is the time for it to dry out, and two, the ability to ship in sod at a greater expense to us, not the city. That is that we will absolutely have that grass ready for use for Memorial Day events. So.
Okay. Ready to walk on and everything.
Ready to walk on, yeah. Flags planted or set up done 6 days before, and use on the Sunday for sleepover, etc. Things that would go down.
Okay. Any other questions for the operator, potential operator? Oh, I'm sorry, that hand is right there. Just looked right over it. Commissioner Dubuk.
Thank you. So, Mr. Witz, just to be clear, if there's a motion tonight that includes directing the city attorney to amend the contract to include dissolution, should we not find a reasonable solution on electricity, that is acceptable to you?
Yes, it is. We just need to work out the fair date with the ring provider, but 100%, as I said, if generators was never something I was okay with for this project. If it was 1 week,
right,
or something like that to just be a bridge, and we knew that equipment was coming by a certain time. It should be noted that DTE does have reserve transformers in stock, and she said that, you know, the woman from DTE did, you know, mention in our meeting that she can pull one of those and create the magic for us if it comes down to. So that was part of the discussion with them. So I have some optimism. It's not 100%, but that's why, again, the city can have it out if it's not acceptable.
I'm optimistic that there's other avenues we could pursue before we had to pull the plug.
Oh, good one.
That sounds like
Saving
the
that
mayor.
one.
What did you say?
Oh,
It's just awful.
Oh, these jokes hurts.
We almost made it 2 full hours on that one.
The contract, notes that you'll secure a minimum of 100,000 in sponsorships. Now that's a minimum.
that is minimum, and it's guaranteed.
How is progress to date?
We have 75,000 committed. It's the same. I have not put more effort into that specifically just because there's been some back and forth out there, but we have Henry Ford, M3 Investments, and the Soaring Eagle Water Park as 3 entities that are already signed up. And the Soaring Eagle Water Park comes with a potential additional advertising for us. What they've done with some events is placed advertising where the water park is included in the ads and focused on our events. So it might open up an additional $20,000 to $30,000 of marketing above the marketing that's in our budget. And that is a very reasonable projection based on our workings with them at all the events. We've had double that where they've helped out and had a little feature like you can get 25% off the water park with your skate, you know, buy a skate thing and you can get this or that, and that could be included, and all that advertising would be at no charge. But we're 75,000 there, and with verbal commitments, and again, these are all folks that we've worked closely with, and their word is good, and if it's not good, then we're coming up with 100,000. So that's.
Now, once your contractual obligation is met, do you intend to continue pursuing sponsorships? Is there any incentive for you to do so?
So I think the way the new deal is structured, there's an absolute incentive to do so. One of the things that wasn't addressed is the contingency. If things were successful or we do need to ship sod in, the only way we can exercise that contingency is that if you're at a point of $30,000 loss or less. So there is an incentive to do that, because it could potentially contribute to the contingency, you know, to protect us in case, you know, we have to get more staff in. And again, the purpose of that contingency is if things are really well, or we want to advertise more in that January when it might be a little slower, that we can do it. So raising more sponsorship is absolutely something that would support the contingency and would be something we would pursue.
So the contract provides you an incentive to minimize the city's exposure?
It does. That is the contingency. Would you agree with that statement, Mr. Lee?
That's a fair statement.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Prush?
Back to the sod issue, assuming that it's installed under the contract and the time frames that you described, whose call would it be as to whether or not it's actually usable, people that can walk on it? I'm assuming it's going to be Mr. Filipski's and not yours?
Yeah, I mean, we would collaborate with that and have no issue with that at all. That'd have to be to the standards, you know, for the city, and we would have no issue with him, you know, viewing the source, or, you know, getting pictures in advance of the sod, or whatever things that he would need to feel comfortable with the supplier that we would do. And I guess we would be willing to stipulate in the agreement as well that our provider would have to be approved by the city as well. So I'm also willing to add that if that's a concern to the agreement, you know, because we do not want to have that sod be anything but amazing.
I would like some provision in the contract that would allow the city to have some control over that, both in terms of not necessarily approving the provider, but just making sure that the installation is appropriate in terms of our standards and what we assume the facility would be used for over the, you know, in the future, and that it was allowed enough resting time or growing time before we had a lot of people walking all over it. So I guess I would like one sentence in the contract that would give the city the authority to manage the restoration and to approve the restoration process.
That would be, we'd be very amenable and think that's very reasonable.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else from Mr. Witz? All right, thank you, Mr. Witz. We'll grab you if we need you again. All right, so a couple takeaways from what I heard. Sounds like there's at least 2 requests if this operating agreement would move forward, where one would be related to the mutual agreement related to the power to terminate the contract if both parties couldn't find a reasonable measure given whatever the circumstances are, and then that the operator and whoever their vendors are would be subject to the city standards regarding the restoration of the footprint and whatever that entails. I see Mr. Leal writing language down there that's much better than how I captured it in my notes, and not even as articulate as Commissioner Perush did. But so I would recommend if anyone were to move this forward with a motion, those 2 items would be considered as a small amendment to the presented contract. Mr. Colo.
Thank you. Now that we've all had chances to speak and the proposed operators had a chance to speak, I think it's probably appropriate time then to make the motion to approve the contract that's before us with giving authority to the city attorney to add and negotiate language for mutual termination contingent on power supply and city oversight of sod and site restoration.
Even better. A motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Dubuck. All right, discussion. We'll go with Commissioner Dubuck.
Thank you, Mayor. So much going on around this park. I love the things that we have controversy around in our city. It means that everything else is pretty awesome. Our big to-do right now is whether or not we're going to have an ice rink in our beautiful new downtown park. So this is a debate I'm happy to have. I think the contract is fair. I understand it's a unique situation, the way that this was brought forward in the midst of this festival. So we have one particular vendor who kind of came forward with the idea of partnership with the city. The way I see this as, one, we have a tremendous opportunity to activate our brand new downtown park during the cold season when it would be virtually unutilized without some sort of attraction, other than very cold people making their way through it, from point A to point, from a parking deck to a restaurant or something. We spent the better part of the last 8 years working to make the Civic Center happen, and all the nasty political debates and conspiracy theory, like some of the stuff we heard tonight that came with it. It's funny to see a bunch of the same people saying that the design for the Civic Center was going to kill a farmer's market, and tonight we're protecting the farmer's market, and now we're hearing that the ice rink can kill the park that they hated. Again, it's a debate I'm happy to have. So, activating the park in the winter when it would be underutilized, I think, is exactly our vision for this park as a central gathering space. The downtown businesses love the idea because it brings much needed traffic, one, during the critical time of year, during the holiday shopping season, but then two, during those really rough months of January and February where they desperately need a hook to bring people to town. So with the benefits to Royal Oak families to enjoy it, because we enjoyed the ice rink several times when it was here for Winter Blast last year. The benefit to the downtown, the fact that I think it's a nice addition that was included in our original conversations about the use of this park, activating in this way. Now, I'm very sensitive to the concerns about any harm that might be done to the park. I think we've really mitigated those. Obviously, we can't completely eliminate risk, but if the greatest risk is that the grass dies, I feel like that's a solvable problem. And then if we find that that's an unacceptable risk in future years, then we don't do it again. But I'm not really willing to nix it because we might have to take an extra couple weeks establishing grass. That doesn't seem like a good reason to hold the park hostage for, an entire, 3 to 4 months of the year. The electric, we settled last week, hopefully. By building out infrastructure that's going to serve a number of events. So that's, to the extent that we can move forward with that plan, that for me is a non-factor. Now, if that falls through, that's why I'm happy to have this amendment in the contract that, that might have to end the contract if we can't find another amenable solution to the electric issue. I had something else to say. Our liability right now maxed at $190,000, which, I think you have that easily without even trying. If it's successful, we probably end up revenue positive. But even then, if it does end up costing, $50,000 to activate the park with an exciting new feature, after we invested all this money in the park to bring people together and draw business to the downtown, we have spent more on less. And I think, lastly, this, again, I see as a pilot. I think some of the conversation I've seen percolating out there implies that this is somehow permanent piece of infrastructure, permanently redefining and redesigning the park. I think some people think that. And what we're talking about is a temporary installation that we do not have to do next year if it really is, if it's not a feature that people enjoy. And I'm willing to have that conversation after we've done it, but I don't want to nix it just because something might go wrong when there's so much that can possibly go right. So I'm not poo-pooing the concerns. I just feel like a lot of the way that we have made decisions in the past, especially when it comes to events or temporary installations, has been, we'll try it and then we'll assess it and we'll determine if it needs to be tweaked or eliminated. And we've done that regularly with some great success. I feel like this kind of really fits that pattern for how we've made decisions, and I don't think there was enough to be concerned about to say no to what I think is checking a lot of boxes for needs for our city, and particularly meeting the goal for why we made this park to begin with. So for all those reasons, and again, I think this is a healthy debate to have. I like that we're having this debate. It's not something that I'm going to go to the mattresses, but I'm willing to try it. I think the city attorney's done a fabulous job ironing out this contract to completely minimize our exposure, make sure that there's an incentive for John Witt Associates to continue to minimize that exposure and make sure this is a tremendous success for the city. So that is why I support the motion. I hope you all do too.
Commissioner Douglas?
Thank you, Mayor. We've heard from, in social media, in direct contacts with us, many citizen objections to putting this skating rink in the park from people who I've never heard from before, who are not regular commentators. So I'm cognizant of that concern among the public. I'm not wild about putting the ice rink in the park. I'm not as optimistic as others about the healing that will take place. But my fundamental objection is that we should take any financial risk at all, other than what we've already committed in terms of electrical power and our fee for the festival itself. We are a government. We are not entrepreneurs. And in fact, we recognize that when we contract out for management of things like the farmers market, like the golf course, like the ice rink. If this is such a lucrative opportunity, I believe JWA should take all responsibility for the rink rental, the skate rentals, the revenue to be derived from hot chocolate sales or whatever. And if they make a ton of money, good on them. But I don't think we should be risking the people's money in this gamble, basically. And for that reason, I won't be supporting the motion.
Commissioner Perush?
Commissioner Douglas just articulated the first reason that I won't be supporting this motion. I won't reiterate what she just said. I think it's too much of a risk. I think it's unusual for the city to enter into this kind of a contract. Mr. Leal has done an extraordinary job in terms of negotiations, in terms of getting it to be as best as it can be, given the framework that it is, and it's an unusual framework for us. And I appreciate all the work that the staff has put into it to get to this point. That's been a lot of work, and it's been in good faith, and I think that that's appropriate to recognize that. But I think that the risk is the type of risk that the city should not be taking, as Commissioner Douglas articulated. So that's my first reason for voting no. The second reason is I know that there are plans in place to restore the grass at the end of the term of the actual rink operation. I'm not as optimistic as many people that it would be ready by the middle of May, given how wacky Michigan weather has been recently. I'm just not optimistic. I think we're looking at perhaps a good 3 months of no one being able to walk on that part of the park, and that's a quarter of the year. And in a 2-acre park, that's a lot of space that's unusual for a significant portion of the year. And I'm not willing to accept that. I think the public should have access to that area 365 days of the year and not lose 3 months while we're waiting for grass to grow. That's my second reason. The third reason is that this is just so irregular in terms of how we usually do major projects. Usually there's a amount of planning that's involved, other committees are involved, the Parks and Rec Board in this instance would be involved. They voted no, they don't like this idea whatsoever. Once they are involved and we're involved, we go out for an RFP. There's a lot of slow-moving parts that put us to a final decision, and that didn't happen in this instance because there was no time for it. So I think because this is just an atypical way of creating a new amenity that I think has an awful lot of flaws, which I'm not going to articulate, but the biggest one is that there's been no RFP, is the third reason why I'm going to vote no tonight. I appreciate all the work that everyone has put into this. I think an ice rink in the community would be well used, perhaps in a different location, but I don't think this contract is the way to bring that about.
Commissioner Macy.
Yeah, thank you. So I feel like we've all kind of gone through this long journey decision-making process. It feels like it's been spread out much longer than these decisions usually are. And for me, when it first was proposed, and we have this idea about an ice rink in the downtown, and it seems like a beautiful kind of, Norman Rockwell type idea to have this ice skating rink and all these people skating around in the holiday season. But I think at this table we were a little bit skeptical of the cost at that time, and we were looking at all the numbers. And it seemed like it was a lot to be paying for that. And so I think that's why we put in some of the contingencies that we did. And the contingencies were met for the DDA and for the sponsorship. But the electrical, I guess I'm not convinced that contingency was met for that, because we had proposed that it was going to be something like $35,000. And in fact, we are spending over $100,000 on it, and we are getting something extra. We're getting something permanent that we can use for other events. But it still seems to me that we can't separate that out from the decision we're making here and weighing that in as a factor in terms of how much this is costing us. And I guess I feel the same as Commissioner Douglas about, I don't feel as optimistic as some other people seem to be about the use of this rink. And when it was first proposed, I heard how Campus Martius does so well, and the Thanksgiving and the Christmas season tend to be the big draws. But since then, we've heard from a lot of people, and as Commissioner Douglas said, it's people who I have not heard from on every single issue that comes before the city. These are individual people. In fact, before the last meeting, I was walking in here, and someone I've never seen before was walking by and said, "I don't want the ice rink." It just seems like this has brought everybody out, and it seems like public opinion has turned against it. Nobody really seems to want this ice rink, even though people like the idea of an ice rink. But here, this proposal is proven to be very unpopular, and many people have talked to me about this, and I appreciate hearing from them, and it does impact how I think about this, not only in terms of whether or not the residents want it, but in terms of the financial piece of it. Are we going to be able to make our money back if our own citizens don't think that it will be that utilized? So for me, it's just, this is, the idea is amazing, and I really like the thought of it, and the image in my head is one that I find very attractive. But how it's laid out and in terms of how it's going to, in terms of the cost to us, and in terms of how it's perceived by the residents of Royal Oak, it seems to me that this is no longer a good deal for us. It's not something that's going to bring enough benefit to the city for what it's going to cost.
Commissioner Kohler, and then Commissioner Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I somewhat agree with Commissioner Macy. I do think that a lot of people think that, you know, there's a lot of negativity around this, but I also think it stems from misinformation and people's opinions, such as something we heard tonight, that it's going to take 3 months that you can't use the park because of the sod restoration. That's just not a fact that has been presented to us by any landscape expert. In fact, we've been told that we will have it back by Memorial Day. In fact, 6 days before Memorial Day, so we can have our Field of Honor, and that we will be able to use the park. And I think that's important to everyone. You know, I was actually looking at old pictures of the park from last year, this weekend. You know, going over this decision, and there's a picture from March of last year where the park, we're actually just starting to put up the library terrace, and you know the sod was in, and it's brown because it's dormant. Because sod died, you know, it goes dormant during the winter time. That sod would not be usable. It's not like there were people laying on it, playing catch, enjoying a nice spring day. It's brown because Michigan is gray in the springtime. I'm looking at how we can activate a park from November, December, January, February. And if that means that we need to trade 1 month, you know, mid-April to mid-May, where we can't walk on it, if we gain 4 months of recreation in our downtown, that seems, you know, I'm willing to trade that month, especially because we've put contingencies that, you know, if need be, the provider must go and buy the good sod that will stick and be ready for us to use, you know. So we're not going to lose a quarter of the year to not having use of the park. That wouldn't be acceptable to any of the 7 months up here. I don't think it'd be acceptable to staff. So I think that's kind of important to look at. And then, you know, I also look at, you know, Commissioner DeBuck hit on the economic development of this. I was at a restaurant association meeting a handful of weeks ago now, and they were talking with the DDA about potentially doing a restaurant week. Drive people in, you know, it's popular in many parts of the country, even in the state, lots of other communities do it. And one person said, hey, let's do it in October. And the restaurant stood up and said, no, I'm out, absolutely not. October is a great month for us. There are people downtown, Royal Oak is still hopping, there's a lot going on. Do it in January when no one's walking through my doors because they don't want to come out. And there was consensus around that. The restaurants wanted this to happen around that. Actually, Mr. Ritz was at that and offered to promote Royal Oak Restaurant Week leading up to Winter Blast as a potential tie-in. But it's bringing people into our downtown in months when they wouldn't be here. So yeah, I'm okay using the park for this public amenity that wouldn't exist. You know, and bringing people into our, you know, there's economic development behind it also. I also think it's more to realize too, you know, the ice rink in the farmers market, there's been a lot of talk about that today. I mean, I had fun, my kids loved going on it. You had to hike up the steps. It looked, you know, it was on plywood. It was, you know, it looked like it was temporarily constructed, right? Whereas this is going to be ground entry where you can walk onto it. It's going to be there for 4 months, so it's going to be put together with lights in. It's actually going to activate and fit into the downtown park. So I know, yes, I know that there is a contingent of people who usually don't say much about what's going on in the city against this, but I think a lot of it's because the public perception and some misinformation that has gone out. So I really think at the end of the day, this will draw people into our downtown, will give our residents something to do, and it'll be good for the city. Thank you.
Commissioner Hunt?
So I've heard from a lot of people, like Commissioner Macy indicated that she had, and that were against this particular project. And in speaking with them, from what I understand, is they had a lot of misinformation. A lot of people understood that the entire park would be off limits, that they would not be able to use Centennial Commons at all during the winter months. And of course, it's just a small portion of it. In addition, people believed that this was going to be a permanent rink. And as we know, it's a one-year trial, really. Hopefully it's something that works out and that we all, love and continue to use. But it is 1 year, we try it, we see what happens. But I've also heard from a lot of people who's super excited about it. They're excited to bring their kids down during the winter months when they really wouldn't necessarily have anywhere else to go or anything else to do during those months. And I've also heard from business owners who are excited that there's this influx of, potential influx of people coming in, not just Royal Oak residents, but possibly people from other communities. But I mean, it's 1 year. I hope it works. I think kudos to everyone who's negotiated this contract. I think, as been stated by Mr. Leal, it's a fair contract. So those are my thoughts.
And I'll just add, I mean, a little bit about the contract. I mean, there's the legality of it, and I want to applaud Mr. Leal for his work because I do think it builds in a lot of material things to mitigate the risk for the city. And I'll say I look at contracts every day and all day. I mean, that's what I do from a business point of view. I mean, I know we're not a business, but, still there's an operating nature to this agreement. Still there's a financial element to this agreement. This is a really good agreement that mitigates a lot of the risk for the city and has a lot of upside. I know we talked about some of the other things that we have, golf course, ice rink, all of that. For Arts, Beats, and Eats, it's always a risk, right? Because we fund the reimbursement for our police and fire based on parking. This has been a long-established agreement for many, many years. We're over, what are we at, 13 years now? Memory's working. 13 years, and we've been able to use, sometimes we break even, a lot of times we're conservative, and we have funding surplus that has gone into our park system. A lot of the new park play structures in our parks have been because of our taking a little bit of risk in the Arts, Beats, and Eats contract that has paid off for us. I think that when we talk about the benefit to the community, I mean, I do think that all of us have an obligation not to just be afraid of our own shadow and afraid of, financial risk, which I appreciate the commissioners that, I mean, there is a risk element to this, but we also have a duty to provide a quality of life for our residents. And we had some people come out here tonight that I've never met either, talking about how, I guess I thought about this mostly over the last number of months in terms of financial impact and thinking of skaters. Who are these people? And I think about my kids. I think about my teenage daughter, places to go, something to do. I think about my little kids getting off the screen, getting out in the middle of winter, which is that time where you spend most of the time with a bag of chips and sitting in front of the TV, and hopefully the Red Wings are doing well. But I think that this is an obligation that we have to the community to deliver. I mean, we never make any money on, we're never going to make money on Normandy Oaks, I think the DDA, when it comes to the business impact, I think it's important to look at the fact that the DDA did jump at the sponsorship for this park. They have a pulse on what the business community wants and needs. They've been very successful in their programs and planning with the downtown bucks and things of that nature. They are a major and significant contributor to Centennial Commons. We can't forget that history. And they've jumped on board saying this is a good idea for the community, but also for the business community as well. I fully appreciate everything that my colleagues have expressed in terms of maybe some of the things they feel uncomfortable with. And I think what it comes down to is not whether these things exist or don't exist, but at what level do you have comfort with them? And I think for me, even if, like Commissioner Dubuck said, at 190,000, that would be if, we brought the rink out, closed it out, and paid people's salaries and everything like that, and and had somebody sitting there, and not a single person showed up to rent one sort of skate rental. So I think it's definitely going to be far south of that number, if not in a surplus. I think we get a promoter, not just an operator in JWA that has proven to be overly successful in some cases, as we saw with the recent festival this summer and with the success of Winter Blast last year. That was really successful. So when I look at it, it is, I mean, you can say it's an unusual contract, but we have folks come to us all the time with ideas, and we evaluate those ideas on their merit. And in this particular case, I mean, I think the JWA is pretty transparent about how they benefit from this, and I think it's pretty clear how we benefit. It's just that factor of risk, but I think that even if we end up minus 30, minus 40, to me that's money well spent as an obligation of this body to provide support for not just our downtown businesses, but for our residents, and especially for kids that need something to do in the winter to get out of the house and experience time with their community and their families. So I'll be supporting it, but like I said, appreciate everybody's contribution tonight. I think it was a good dialogue, and like Commissioner DeBuck said, the last couple meetings we're talking about portaloos and ice rinks. I mean, things are going up in Royal Oak, so. Any other discussion? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No.
See a hand of the noes just to confirm. Okay, so the motion passes. All right. Do we have an agreement? Well, we have to sign the agreement. We have an agreement to have an agreement. Okay. Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda, notwithstanding anything for the benefit of our fine city. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. A motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. We're concluded.